Well, this is an exciting new rod that I've just acquired. Just thought I'd show you all this as part of the rod buying series of videos that we're making. You can see on the buttstock here it says Playfair of Aberdeen. Now this rod was designed by Alexander Grant, and Alexander Grant held the world casting record, and he was a bit of an amateur engineer. He invented a musical instrument called the rondello, and this is one of his fishing rods. These rods were originally made by Grant, and then later on the rods were licensed out to Playfair of Aberdeen. Alexander Grant's original rods were actually tuned using a method of resonance. These rods are not tuned, and you can tell this is not one of his original rods because it doesn't have his serial numbers on it, and it doesn't have drop rings. Grant's original rods had drop rings on. These rods connect together using a system called a splice, which you can just see there. Now the splice is actually wrapped together with a leather strap. These days it's easier to use electrical tape, which is just as strong, but you can see how the splice works. Essentially there's a half cut on the rod stock and there's a half cut on the other stock. So this is kind of how the splice works, and this is then wrapped with a leather strap or electrical tape, and then the rod is formed instead of having suction tubes which normally connect fishing rods. Now in terms of condition for the rod buying video, we have the button here, which is or the pommel, which is also in very good condition. The cork's in very good condition, it needs cleaning a little bit, and the brass is in good condition. What we do have though, if we come over here, you can see just here the threading is still very strong. I mean, these eyes are not loose or anything like that, so it's probably done with silk originally, but it's a bit unsightly, so this will be replaced and restored on the rod. And it has two spare tips with it, this rod, and neither of the tips have been broken, and so this will still be a very, very viable fly fishing rod when it's done. So this here is the bag, and in this little pocket here, this is where the leather straps were procured and found. There's still a few bits and bobs sitting in there. As you can see, it's got the original badge on, Playfair of Aberdeen. And when you're looking to buy a vintage rod, one of the things you look for is completeness, and something like this is like, these are usually lost, so this is like a nice little feature. And when you've got a rod bag with the original name on it, and you've got a rod with the original brand on it to match, and this really does increase the value of the product that you're going to buy. Now one thing I want to say about Alexander Grant was Alexander Grant was the guy who held the world casting record, which he said, I think it was 1905, and it wasn't beaten until 2010. So Alexander Grant's tuned rods were exceptionally good pieces of equipment. Not as renowned a quality as Hardy, but certainly a very deep piece of Scottish fly fishing history.